There's been so much good discussions that we've had today. And I have the privilege to be among the last people to say something. Now, I know on the program it says that I was going to talk about the impact of open data, but I imagine that we've had so much about that right now. So that's it, I'm going. Now, first of all, I want to just start off by congratulating the Tanzanians on having such a warm and personable president. I really enjoyed listening to him. Didn't you? Yes, absolutely. They're wonderful. And then I have 3 stories to tell you. Story number 1. I read in the newspaper, and then I happened to go to the Midwest of Kenya, where the Rift Valley is. And I went over there, and there is a county. So Kenya is now devolved into small states, kind of like the United States. So it's all got these small states. They're called counties. And there's a county parliamentarian who I found who cannot go home to where he lives, to where he comes from. He has to live in the nearest city for the simple reason that he can't go home, ever. The reason that he can't go home is because at one point, citizens discovered that a contract was given to one of his companies irregularly to do something in a school, and he didn't do it. So they got so annoyed that they basically were hounding for his blood. And so now, until the school is complete, they won't let him go home. Isn't that the kind of impact that when we're talking about open data, we keep talking about? Yes? Does that story make your heart feel a little bit warmer? Yes? Yes? It's kind of the thing that we work for. We work for making sure that citizens are truly activated so that they can take control of their own lives. But how does this come about? It comes about when data is available from government, from private sector, from whichever sources. It comes about when intermediaries are engaged, like the media. And then it comes about when citizens themselves care enough to be activated, to do something about it. Today I was talking to a gentleman called Paul Mungai, who I think is here somewhere. And I was talking to him about the enablers that it takes to put together a successful open data initiative together. And it occurred to me, and I think the gentleman who spoke last on this side, that self-interest is a really important thing to think about when you're thinking about putting an open data initiative together. And I just want to say that I think that our motivations for putting open data initiatives truly up and running, for putting open data initiatives truly up and running, they matter. Those motivations matter. Think about the political imperative, for example. Recently, I had the privilege to meet the president of a fairly new country in Africa. And what I was doing is that I was evangelizing, as we are wont to do, about open data and about the value of it and so on and so forth. And I was privileged to be able to spend 20, 30 minutes with the president and say all the things that we have said in this conference. At the very end of it, he said, "Kags, I have 2 responses for you. One is official and one is unofficial. In the official response, I want to say that my country is fully behind this open data initiative. We love it, we love open government, and we're going to stand by it. Unofficially, I want to inform you that I can't do anything about it. Because for me to get here, there were people who campaigned and who got us here, and I have to allow them to eat. Now, the thing that I want to make note of is what they're eating is money that has been provided by donors for development. We continue as the Open Institute to spend time going into this country and spending time advocating for openness and advocating for increased transparency and so on. And we are cognizant of the fact that the longer it takes for that country to not open up, young as it is, the harder it is going to be because they're eating and they don't want somebody to know that they're eating. Isn't that the challenge of our times? But then, motivations matter because of the fact that we determine how we go into these projects. Because even as you continue to do these things, as we continue to advocate as we do, as we continue to build the apps that we do, as we continue to release the little data that we do and visualize it and do the journalist training and we do the citizen engagement activities and so on, as we do all these things, the motivations matter because at the heart of open data initiatives is one thing: culture change. Now, I was thinking about the question of culture change, and I realized that the existing culture of secrecy that is within governments has been perfected over many centuries. It has been built over years and years and years, and it has been perfected to such a strong component. And we in this room, especially we who are here at this very last minute, we are so committed to trying to overturn that culture, but we try and do it in 2 weeks, in 3 months, with short projects. Is it possible to change culture that has been built over centuries in simply 4 months, 2 weeks, with an app, with a small pilot project? The thing about it is, everybody wants a quick result, because technology has just made us instant oriented people. We all focus too much on two things. Number one, we focus on what I call hypism. So we do pilot projects and we do perennial pilot projects. We say, you know what, we want to test out and see whether the citizens in this room can stay awake long enough for Kags to speak for 2 hours. And he speaks for 2 hours, and we discover that they can actually stand it, but we don't do anything about it. We then go and test something else altogether. The other thing that we do is that we build shiny things in the hope that those shiny things are going to make a difference. They do make a difference because of the fact that they start conversations and they create interest. But the problem is that 80% of the time, and if you look at a lot of the open data initiatives around Africa, they're not backed up by policy, and policymakers are built in this way. I was just telling Paul today that a civil servant is built to do what he has been told by an existing policy. Executive order is all very well, but executive order is as good as a project. In Kenya, the previous president, Kibaki, gave an executive order for Kenya Open Data to be set up. As a project, it works. Everybody comes together. But after he left, it slowed down for the simple reason that civil servants then have to try and figure out, how do we continue this, considering that there's no policy that says what data we should release, how often we should release this data, in what formats we should release this data, that what does machine readable actually mean? Because in general, when you look at government documents, they do define all of these things. The thing that we do is that when we design these programs, we design them without thinking about the question of culture change and the amount of time that culture change takes. Recently, I learned about something called year zero. Apparently, when you design a program, you should think about year zero. Year zero is a year where you're really doing introductions, you're really trying to set the stage, you're really trying to do the initial pilots, you're trying to do the initial engagements, and usually that year goes so fast. And usually a lot of the programs that we have are 1 year or less. So what happens is that we rush so fast, and we then come up with these arguments that we try and say that we did this major change, whereas the truth of the matter is that the next year we cannot prove that that change actually happens. What is my point? My point is that as we have spent the day here, and as we continue with this conference tomorrow, I urge us to think about why we do this. And the reason that we do this is that we want to change culture. If we do, then there are two things we must do. One is that we must go back to one, too many open data conferences are attended by the choir. The choir, as I said earlier, is this people who come to every open data conference. In this room, I can already see a number of faces that I see at every single conference. Unless we go back to one and begin to widen the space, we bring in the civil servants on board, and we can't bring the civil servants on board while we say feedback loops and other interesting words that mean nothing to them, until the time that we start using words that other people can understand, until this time that we start defining our programs a little bit better, a little bit to be more suited to culture change, we're going to struggle. The second thing that we should do is that we should slow ourselves down a little bit. We should ensure that in every project that we do, there's some policy aspect that we think about. There's a contribution to policy. There's a contribution to the technical backing up of the thing to ensure that it is sustainable. Thank you very much, and I hope you all have a good evening.